Good day to everyone who is into self-improvement. Today we'll learn how to calculate the money needed for production, and along the way we'll discover what the cost accumulation coefficient is. As always, we'll break it down using a super simple example, literally on our fingers, or rather, on gates. So here's the idea that popped into my head. We have a blacksmith shop already up and running. A middleman approaches us with a business expansion proposal. He says, "I'm ready to buy one beautifully crafted wrought iron gate from you every single day." Great, we're excited. Why not make more money? Let's check the initial conditions. Quick note, all numbers here are made up, rounded, and simplified for clarity. In real life, things aren't this straightforward. So we need to produce 1 unit per day, and we get paid $450 for it. To make it, we need to spend $150 on metal, $50 on paint and basic materials, another $50 on energy, acetylene, and other supplies, plus $100 for the worker who fabricates the gate. He gets paid right after completing each unit. Production time per gate? 5 days, just because I decided so. All right, let's get started. We check our balance, pull out $150 plus $50 equals $200, and provide all necessary materials. Production kicks off. 1 day goes by, everything is running smoothly, and then we realize we need to start a second unit. Uh-oh, our $200 isn't enough. We think for a moment and quickly figure out. Basic materials cost $150 plus $50, $200 per unit. But for continuous production, we need 5 units in progress at all times. That means we need 5 times more money than we initially thought. Well then, time to dig into our savings and fund material purchases. Everything seems fine, until suddenly we run out of money again. Wait, what? Why? The answer is simple. Production doesn't run on air. It consumes electricity, auxiliary materials, and resources. And we forgot to budget for those. Time to stop making mistakes and look at the bigger picture. Let's draw a graph and see how our costs accumulate over time. At the start, we purchased all the necessary materials. So at point 0, our costs aren't 0. They're already $20. And what happens next? Our costs steadily rise until we hit the final amount we mentioned earlier. That's the total cost of auxiliary materials, energy, and wages. During production, costs climb from $200 to $350. In other words, besides startup costs, we also need to fund ongoing expenses. And now comes the logical question. How do we calculate them? In this example, it's easy. But what if we have a large-scale operation? Smart folks figured out a way to do it without manually calculating every single expense. If you have multiple production lines, your head will spin. So let's just look at the graph. We see the starting and ending points of cost accumulation. At the end, we have a finished product. At the start, we're just getting to work. Now let's assume that on average, there's always a half-finished product in progress. This midpoint represents our cost accumulation coefficient. And from that, we get the formula. If we multiply production costs by this coefficient, and then by the number of items in progress, we'll find out how much money we actually need. Amazing? Absolutely. This formula appears in every textbook. And honestly, most economists rely on it. But as they say, real life is another story. And why is that? Let me explain. Let's take another look at our graph. Who said costs increase at a steady rate between the start and end of production? They don't. In reality, things are much messier. The graph could look like this, or something entirely different. It all depends on what you're producing. And our formula? Well, let's just say it's an approximation. You might be thinking, great, so why did we just go through all of this? Simple. Economic processes aren't like math. They rarely stick to exact formulas. But in most cases, the formula you just learned is good enough to properly budget production costs. For small businesses, it works perfectly. Big businesses, on the other hand, can afford to spend time and money on more precise calculations. but the goal of this video is to help you understand what the cost accumulation coefficient is and why it matters. You now know how to calculate it, why it's important, and how to apply it. And now that you grasp the concept, you'll be able to do this on your own if you ever need to. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. I've got tons of useful stuff to share that'll actually come in handy in real life.